Welcome to What the Hex, your source for Warhammer Underworlds in under 30 days until Adepticon.
Oh
Oh my
no.
goodness. So for some context for you, we've got just over 2 weeks to go until the real shindig here. So feeling a little bit stressed about that, but it's good. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Our topic for today is going to be some additional Adepta prep, if you will. We played. So this is actually the third time that we've played our Adepticon decks into each other. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Yeah. So we did a recording of the game, and we're going to try and give you a little bit of a quick rundown of how the game went and some of the sort of lessons learned and some things that, we thought about as we were doing this that you can sort of try to apply to your games as you prepare for tournaments, or if you're just generally trying to get better with a specific deck. But as usual, we've got a few normal topics before we head into the meat of this. So Dave, you got any community shout outs?
Yeah, it's relatively short time since we last recorded, so we haven't had a lot of chance for any new content to come out. But I just wanted to shout out hanging out on the Discords in general through that avenue. Run into folks, and specifically, I'm going to shout on this one is Lethenham, who we've interacted with before, but he's been a sounding board for a faction that I basically don't know very much about, i.e. Purifiers, which I've been working on, as listeners will know. So as I encounter challenges or successes, I've been pinging off him, and I think through several degrees of separation, some other people as he's passing on some things. It's just a great way to encounter other people, some takes outside your own area. Like, I could try to talk Purifiers locally, but no one else has played them much, certainly not recently. And so it's a nice way to talk to somebody who, might have some more experience with a faction, and people are really surprisingly accommodating and open about chatting. So thanks to the Discord community for that sort of thing, and Lethenham in particular. That's my community shout out.
Yeah. I mean, I had a similar experience with Krushed. I hadn't played them a whole lot. I didn't get like a ton of feedback, but I didn't push really hard to try and find like specific things. But within posting the deck, I got 3 or 4 responses almost immediately to say like, either they liked certain things or thought there was certain things that were worth considering or taking out. So yeah, if you're even remotely interested in trying to get lots of different viewpoints and opinions on decks, Discord is a good way to do it. There's a number of different avenues there, but yeah, feel free to check them out.
Sure.
And hobbying time. We haven't had a ton of time since the last time we recorded, but at least for me, I have really only just been focusing on crushes, generally just trying to make those last few cuts, trying to like figure out like what are the 1 or 2 sort of borderline pieces that I need to sort of solidify here. But not much else. I probably should be painting, but I think at this point I think that ship has pretty well sailed.
You're gonna commit to the green.
Yeah, I think green is a good color for some green skins, and we can be happy with that. I might just bring along some painted stuff just to be like, this is fun. And I mean, we're gonna be there,
sure,
for so long. Maybe I'll bring a second deck too.
Yeah, I mean, when we possibly crash and burn on the first day, we might still be looking for a game the next day. So bring a change up to wash the sting of defeat out of your brain.
Definitely. Yeah. How about you? You got anything from the hobby side of things?
Well, to complicate my situation, the only thing worse than being about 2 weeks out from Adepticon is being 2 weeks out from Adepticon with a big event in between that and this. So I have our annual game cabin where myself and some of the dads from my neighborhood get together, play a whole bunch of board games. It's awesome. People make great food. And we do some hiking through the snow and play a ton of board games. What that means, though, is that some of the prime painting time is getting chewed up by by this. So yeah, I'm gonna be up against it a little bit. I have not yet conceded to unpainted, but we shall see. Um, I did crank out a lot of painting. Unfortunately, it was on little airplanes for aeronautic imperialists.
Ooh,
Wanted to bring a dogfighting game. We haven't played any aircraft games before, so
that game looks fun. I haven't tried it yet.
I'll let you know in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. All right. Anything else before we dive in here?
No, let's do it.
Okay. So our battle report, if you haven't been paying attention to any of our sort of AdeptCon prep stuff, we are prepping crushes and purifiers. So how about maybe give people a quick rundown of sort of where you started at with your purifiers, where you are now, and then maybe some of the lessons you learned to get to where you are.
So I had started with like a hyper defensive build. I thought, they don't have great wounds, but they got great defensive stats, especially if they can get inspired. And they have some infaction that are relatively passive. So I was looking at like something with guard, because they have a surge for having everyone on guard, and they have a caster, and some of the passive scoring from casters, like just having gambit spells in your discard. But what I found was that it was just a little bit too hard to really hang back, and I've done that very passive thing before with in my team tournament monologue days, and I thought I'd try something a little more flexible. So it has morphed into something flex, where it has some passive scoring, some aggressive scoring. And I do like that challenge of adapting to what I'm seeing out there. So against something very aggro, like, I don't know, crushes, I
Yeah.
might try to lay back and score some passive glory to power up to meet the challenge as it comes. So I am sitting on 16 glory in the current iteration. That's kind of gone up and down a little bit, but 16 glory in the objective deck with a 10-11 split. That's for a 21 power card, 10 gambits, 11 upgrades. That a number of people are running. It hasn't been as bad as I would have thought. So,
what sort of what is the 11th upgrade that's pushing you over?
It is a mix. So, weirdly, like, I guess I could just make it easier by clipping Silent Ring out of there, which is a draw card. But I am trying to keep Silver Lining in, and that so it's not even necessarily an upgrade that's keeping it. It's a objective that's keeping
Sure.
it at 10-11. So
yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. What about you? What's your broad overview, and where'd you start and where are you at now?
Yeah, so I started with the so I sort of started with the old smash and grab type hold two crushes sort of base coming from the previous season and sort of what they were trying to do. And so the idea then morphed sort of into this like more aggro hold two, because now we have so many of these like go stand in enemy territory on feature tokens type objectives. And I found that generally that was tough because you only have the 3 fighters, they're slow, and that if you do that, a lot of your glory ends up being very dependent on being able to hold your ground and not get pushed around. And it sort of also dictates your positioning, so you're not always being optimal about where you stand to make attacks.
Sure.
And I found that wasn't working very well, particularly into your deck. Bahanar was a real problem because I kind of had to choose between charging in and trying to hit your fighters or stand on hexes to score my objectives. And if I stood on the hexes, what generally happened then is Bahanar stands 2 hexes away and just just pummels me with his hammer.
Mhm.
So learning from that, I've switched to a complete aggro build that is more, I guess I would say, like the surges are actually fairly passive, trying to be able to score without dice, and then a lot of the end phase are the bigger, like bold deeds, clean kills type things, where you're trying to just get big scores in the end phase if possible,
Mhm.
just to kind of make up for some of the lower total. And in doing that, I do have a 15 glory total right now. Um, Still, adjusting like one or two things. But that's pretty stable right now as 15 glory. I don't expect that to go up.
And
So it's a
I guess
little
with that
on.
count, though, do you have primacy in that deck?
I do have primacy, not a
Okay.
lot, but having primacy does help a little.
Right. So, I mean, it means you activate the primacy, uh, the primacy mechanic. And I think, given that you're unlikely to give it up very often, and with your damage output, you can almost count yourself as like a 16 glory deck.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'd feel comfortable saying you're probably going to net one extra glory per game. It could be more than that. It might be a lot more than that, but
I
um,
think I
even
think
if you lose
one
it once, you
is.
probably get it twice, or you'll get it once, and the other guy won't get it at all. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think one is usually a pretty safe bet. So yeah, 16
sure.
I guess is a fair spot to be considering the deck at. And I'm also at 10-11 split, um, mostly because I wasn't sure what to cut, and I'm also running Silver Lining, so I
Mm.
decided I just put in one more upgrade just to sort of
Mhm.
stack that a little bit. And the extra upgrade is an illusion.
Okay.
Um,
Oh yeah,
so
nice.
it doesn't hurt me. It's actually phantom darts, so it gives me a little bit of range, which is
Hmm.
nice for all these range one beaters.
Get some extra WA counters.
Yeah, yeah, that's another thing. Getting inspired with making range attacks. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I mean, it's run forward and smash, which feels pretty nice.
Mhm.
um, has been hit or miss in the Purifier matchup, but that's why we are doing these games.
Yeah. Well, and also it should be noted that like some of this more aggressive build, this is the first time we've done it with this version. Our
Correct.
previous couple
Yeah,
of
yeah.
versions. So
Our previous matchups were, I was still doing hold two, and
sure.
it was much tougher.
Hmm. Um,
Any
go ahead.
any sort of things you're still considering with these current changes before we dive into the game?
No, did you want to talk about like matchup specific thoughts?
Well, that's a good idea. We should do that. Yeah.
Uh, so for me, and here, I was thinking about this matchup a little bit, and having played it a couple times, I knew like some crucial cards to watch out for was your brutal reprisal. Whereas
Yep.
if I successfully land an attack, that you'll get the chance to attack back if we're adjacent, so you can prevent the drive back and then attack back. And then I know that you've got a lot of push, so. Uh, Countercharge being one. I think you pulled the combo twice where it was I tried to take a range attack. I'll just chip something off, and you countercharged, which felt bad. Uh, Countercharged and then brutal reprisal right after the attack. And I was like, oh no. So I was pretty cognizant of that specific one, and knowing that. You coming in with 3 damage on 2 of your fighters means that 2 of them, even off the bat, are able to one shot. There's a silver lining, so to speak, on that, which is that any damage upgrades you have in the deck are a little bit dead cards for you,
Hmm.
because you can't kill me anymore. I'm already dead.
Yeah.
So
How much more
uh,
dead can I get?
yeah. So a lot of what I'm doing is trying to get there with improving my defense values or improving my defense dice or getting rerolls on defense and that sort of thing. Just making it hard to even land the hit in the first place. My specific bit of tech that I thought of when I was thinking about this, I was like, well, let's see. Until I've seen brutal reprisal, if I can, it's better to attack from not adjacent, and I would rather attack like Thug, who's only got 2 damage before upgrades, or Ardskull, who does 3 damage, but is until he's inspired, he's only swinging on 2 Fury. And then even after inspiration, if both he and Morgok are inspired, he's still less accurate as 3 Fury versus, I believe, 3 Fury with a reroll.
That is correct.
So, those are some of the considerations that I at least had going into the game. Whether I retain those or not is another thing that we'll discuss. So.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
So for me, having learned to fear Bahanar, because I always forget that he starts with being able to inspire very easily, because it's roll all successes gets the inspire, and once he's inspired, he's hitting for 3 damage.
Yeah.
That you can pretty quickly be up to 3 or 4 damage, which is putting me at risk of getting 2-shotted even with some of the healing tech and some of the damage reduction that Krushes run.
Now, I'll challenge that his inspiration is easy, because on offense and defense, it's basically like a 1 in 4 every time he makes he makes a defensive roll or an offensive roll. Once rerolls get in the mix, then it starts turning up quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think that you have a good idea, and I mean, I guess you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have a good idea of when it's appropriate to try and burn the ether quartz for those rerolls, because getting Bahanar inspired can be a really big deal, especially if it happens early. So with that in mind, especially for this game, I wanted to specifically try, because my thinking was that if I can just kill Bahanar, then the rest of the game becomes easier. At that point, your damage cap's pretty low, and I still have a ton of hit points, so it makes you have to work really hard for kills.
Sure.
And all of your weapons that are longer reach are less effective then, as well. So it seemed like if I was gonna win, I needed to just kill Bahanar. So it was like, let's take all the risks and just throw everything we can at him, and once he's gone, kind of figure out the rest of the game from there. Definitely was cognizant of your pushes as well, because being reach 1, it's fairly easy to end up out of charge range with these guys. So I was trying my best to always be putting myself sort of in position for future turns as well, where it's like, well, even if you push me away, I can probably still make a charge, even if it's not optimal. But that's about it for this matchup. Do you have any other general matchup thoughts of things you're just trying to consider in the deck for the sort of majority of matchups that you think you would expect to see?
Well, mostly this is I feel like I have some concerns that I have a little bit too much in damage upgrades. It's challenging because I don't start with anybody more than damage 2. And honestly, I only have one guy who inspires to more than damage 2. So it feels like damage is something that I need to correct by and large. It's just that some matchups, I've definitely played games where I was like, well, Bahanar is doing like 7 damage right now. Like, it's kind of out of control.
You might need to kill a Mollog, right?
You might. I don't even want to think about that. But it's a thing where you have a warband, you decide, am I going to cover their weakness or am I going to build on their strength, right? So a couple weaknesses I have are low starting damage and low starting health. I don't have enough resources to cover both of those. Right now I'm covering the damage. But I can make them pretty survivable. So like maybe there's a build where I lean harder into even more survivability. So that's kind of the fulcrum that I'm balancing deck decisions on right now. So it's tough. The thing I like to do with decks is say like, okay, here's a card I was considering. Here's what I'd swap it for. When I draw that card, let me think about how much better it would or would not feel to have this alternate card in. So, I didn't have one specifically for that because I'd made a few changes here. Specifically, I'd had Heartstone Amulet, which is reduce all incoming damage by 1, and I decided to try out Champion's Fortitude instead. Swap that out, which is reroll on defense, with the idea that it would help me inspire. And then once inspired, it would just help me survive. Heartstone in certain circumstances felt like really good. In others, it was inconsequential. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the big change to check out on this one.
Makes sense. I like that idea of like, am I building towards my strength or am I building towards my weaknesses?
Yeah.
I think with certain warbands, you have to work one way or the other. Thinking about that, I think I pretty well decided to build towards the weaknesses for Crushes. Movement, I think, is their biggest weakness. And an accuracy, I think, is probably the second. But even that's a bit of a stretch. I mean, they're pretty accurate for an aggressive warband, especially Morgok once he gets his
Especially
reroll.
inspired. Yeah.
Yeah. But so like you said, I do have a number of pushes in the deck to try and make up for that. I do have a number of different ways to add extra dice. And so, I mean, that's a lot of the deck. And then I do have I do have 3 damage upgrades, but one of them is Berserk Rage. So it's adding accuracy as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's sort of incidental accuracy, strength boost.
Berserk Rage being the one out of Arena Mourners 2, which is +1 dice, +1 damage, and you automatically roll no successes on your defensive rolls, which is actually, I was really impressed at what a good card it was for you, because like you're only 1 dice on defense and you have a huge stack of health, so you kind of don't get, like, it felt real bad once that was out.
Yeah.
Especially once any healing comes into play.
So the main idea with this card is that I always, if I can, I put it onto Ardskull. He's the one who inspires to have Scything attack. So he's getting +1 dice and +1 damage for his Scything attack. So then he's 3 Fury, 3 damage Scything, which feels really bad for folks. And then if I do that, then all the healing and wound upgrades go on him. And then it's, at that point, you're basically just relying on having enough hit points that it's like, I don't know, you got to hit me 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
It has come back to bite me, but I think more often than not, I've been happy with it, even if he ends up dead.
Fair.
But that's the decks. Any final thoughts before we dive into the game?
No, let's go for it.
All right. So, we are just going to sort of not exactly blow by blow here, but we will give some general ideas of what's happening in the game so that you're not lost. And we'll try and keep it at a reasonable pace here for you folks.
Sure.
So to start things off, we had our roll for boards, and I believe I won that roll.
Sure did.
Yeah.
What did you take and why?
So I had you place the first board so that I had choice over orientation, because I know that anytime I can make sure that there's no offset, it's going to benefit me, because like I said, speed is my weakness. I want to be able to get all these 3 wound fighters into combat turn 1 if I can. So force the deployment to be in my favor is going to be what I want to do as often as possible. The hallway is probably the scary thing that I do not want to see.
Now it occurs to me that I think all 3 times we played this matchup, we've ended up with this where you're aligning the boards. So
we certainly have, and it is something I am very cognizant of.
What board do you? Oh, so I got to place the first board.
You do.
I'm looking through these, and I'm knowing that you're gonna set wide, try and get as close as possible. And so, looking through boards, I should think about this a little harder. But Hive of Sacrifice and Mirrorwell are 2 boards that are very similar. No matter which way you orient, I'm going to be able to put 3 pretty far back. And so, deciding on those, I think I ended up going for Mirrorwell. And I think in retrospect, maybe I would next time go with Hive of Sacrifice, but it's not. Again, they're almost identical boards, so
Yeah.
not a big difference. And it lets me set up in a way to kind of support in general. You come back with the
Chamber
Chamber
of
of Genesis.
Genesis.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's actually a couple boards similar to this, and it doesn't really matter to me which one I use. I just want to have two starting hexes that are on that front line,
Hmm.
so that I can have two fighters as close as possible to enemy territory, and then one who is, relatively close, one hex off.
Hmm.
Um, in doing that, it pretty much guarantees that there's a turn one charge for two fighters. It's not guaranteed completely. Like, I mean, I guess if there was like a three fighter warband who really wanted to play defensively, they could completely stop me from charging on turn one.
Yeah.
But that doesn't come up that often anymore.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of curse breakers or other warbands like that.
Yeah. So next up is objectives. I draw 1, 3, and 4, and the 1 is important because I have Trace the Ley Lines, which is if I can have one fighter within one or more, or with one or less hex, within one or fewer hexes of that in the end phase. So that's a pretty easy score. I know it's in my deck, so I just know that I want to place one in a place that's safe and easy. That's about all the thinking I'm doing on these.
Fair.
And then putting them in generally where I can go stand on them for some extra cover protection, and then the option to flip them.
Yeah. And I know that from playing this matchup a couple times that you do care about holding some objectives. So I choose to leave mine fairly far back.
Mm-hmm.
This board is actually not great for deploying them far away, but
Mm-hmm.
I think they're far enough away. Like, you're not going to want to come running past me, I don't think.
Right.
So I'm fine with just keeping them in the back. And then I chose not to use a cover hex at all,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't need to have those landing spots as much as they would help you or potentially other matchups for having feature tokens to stand in.
Sure. So, and I do place one. I place it a little in your territory, kind of forgetting that you don't care about them. In retrospect, I might have placed it in mine to give myself another spot to maneuver to for extra protection. But
Yeah.
that's that. Drawing cards as the player place the first board. I'm going to have to make a decision first. So I've drawn Prize Beyond Measure, which is score immediately if at the end of an activation I have a surviving friendly fighter on an objective with 3 or more upgrades. Not great in the first round. I've got Trace the Ley Lines, which is a 1 glory that I should be able to score without too much trouble. I have placed objective 1 pretty far back, so that feels pretty safe. And I've drawn Silver Lining. The efficacy of that depends on my power card hand. Power cards are Glory Seeker, Heated Instinct. So Glory Seeker, extra damage, Heated Instinct to push, which is better on quarries, which is not going to happen. Channel of Zenith, which is a elemental ploy that I can inspire somebody, or I can burn their ether quartz to permanently inspire them. It either lasts for the round, or for an ether quartz lasts forever. Channel the Wind, which is a ping damage, or a ping 2 if I want to burn an ether quartz, and then Silent Ring. So I've got 2 upgrades and 3 gambits. So Silver Lining is not going to score here. So I have to decide, am I going to toss the power card hand, or am I going to toss the objectives? And thinking about it, the objectives feel bad. I don't like chasing for Silver Lining. So I decide with a push and that ping damage, and the inspire and a damage. Like I've got some pretty good stuff. If I draw into my one for playing a elemental, there's elemental blessing. If I play an upgrade, then I've got that easy. So I decide I'm going to toss my objective cards and keep my power cards. What that translates to me is, unfortunately, I draw into Path to Victory, which means I have to kill a guy and hold 2 objectives. Not impossible.
No.
I it's if I focus, I've got a decent chance of getting one. Honestly, thinking about this in retrospect, somehow I got it in my head that I needed to have two dead. So I don't think I even thought about this for a lot. So it'd
Hmm.
be interesting to look at this and see if I left that on the table. Force of the Avalanche, which feels
Yeah.
real bad. I've got to kill somebody. Um, I have to kill somebody with an attack equal to or greater than their wounds characteristic, which is
Hmm.
El Horrible against Krushed.
Yeah.
And contest of equals, which is almost certainly going to happen. You want to attack, I'm going to throw some attacks. So
Yep.
this doesn't feel great, and it doesn't feel like a total disaster either.
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
Yeah, so objective wise, I'm feeling pretty good. I've got Reckless Swing, the Awesome Predator, and Oruk Cunnin. So when I drew those, I felt like, okay, this is solid, but I need to have a good power hand for Oruk
Hmm.
Cunnin. Just as a quick rundown, for those who don't know, Reckless Swing is a surge that you score if the target of your attack has more supporting fighters than you, which is usually pretty easy. You just have to make kind of a suboptimal charge,
Yeah,
but you
it
get a
has to be a
guaranteed
range
bonus.
one attack, right?
It
Which
does
for
have to be
you
a range
is
one
not a big
attack.
deal, but
Yeah, I mean that's everything the crushes have anyway. So more often than not, it's just hey, make an attack.
mhm,
But that's like usually free glory for me. Awesome Predator, if you have primacy, which is doable, or if you have a attack with damage characters to 4 or more, you score this in the end phase for 1.
yeah,
And then Auric Cunnin, you need to score this for having played your third or subsequent gambit in a single phase
mhm,
or round. Um, that one can be tough, but if you have 3 good gambits, it's pretty easy. So, in terms of the power cards, I have Primal Lunge, Blunt Force Master, Berserk Fortitude, Commanding Stride, and Brutal Reprisal. So, the three that are the surges feel really strong here. Commanding Stride lets me push Morgok 3, and since I can put him on that starting line, because of your board choice, I have a lot of landing spots for him with that into your territory.
yeah,
Um, Brutal Reprisal is just always good. There's a high chance of being attacked at some point where I can kind of manufacture a reaction to get an extra attack. And
mhm,
then Berserk Fortitude has probably ruined more people's days than any other card that crushes play.
yeah,
Being able to reduce damage at reaction speed is always strong, but being able to potentially reduce damage by more than 1 can really catch people off guard.
yeah,
And so, well, Primal Lunge and Blunt Force Master are not strong starting upgrades to have. I'm perfectly fine with keeping this hand.
sure,
Primal Lunge is, you can potentially get an extra move or attack for discarding primacy after an activation, which
mhm,
could still come up. And
mhm,
Blunt Force Master is theoretically extra pushes or extra accuracy if you can get
yeah,
the staggers on. So
yeah. Um, we roll off for deployment.
we do. And I win it.
Yeah.
So I have you start because you have more fighters than me.
All right. So I've got 3 spots back, 1 slightly forward, and my plan is I'm going to put my 2 fighters that start on a single defense die, both back behind Bahanar,
Yep.
so that if you choose to use pushes or whatever to get at them, because they're farther away than you should be able to get to without power card help, then Bahanar can wail on you. And the idea being that if you want to go after Bahanar, he's defending on 2 shields prior to inspiration. That feels pretty good. Um, which means that we're both kind of going the same strategy as like live or die on Bahanar.
Yeah. Um, and in terms of my deployment, like I said, I've got 2 fighters on the front line and then 1 further back. The 2 on the front line are Ard Skull and Morgok. They both start at 3 damage. So if I get lucky, they can, either one of them can take out Bahanar in a single hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got Thug a little further back, just sort of as the, like, you bring him in, he's going to do something, but
Sure.
he's the more accurate fighter. He doesn't hit as hard.
Yeah. Um, on the roll, you get the critical advantage, so I end up losing. I have to go first, and I actually decide here. I see an opportunity to charge Sinella onto a objective and lob a lofted shot at Morgok. Um, I do this for a few reasons. Bahanar is in between, so I know even if you have countercharge, there's no way you can countercharge up to Sinella,
Yep.
because it's with this positioning, it's actually uh, 4 away, but you would have to push 4 to get back at me because Bahanar's in the way. So this feels pretty good. It feels like in the best situation, I can deal damage and drive you back, and then get Morgok down a little bit. But also available is a tie, which would also force you back and score me contest equals, and that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
It's also got me on a cover hex, which is a little bit more defense, and Sinella is actually next to a couple fighters, so there's no way to attack her without giving supports right now. So even though Sinella is on a single die, I mean, I guess there's also the outside chance of an inspire here, but I get a crit single, you get a shield. I score 1 glory right out of the gate for contest to equals, and that feels all right. Unfortunately, I draw into Prize Beyond Measure, which was a card I specifically discarded because I didn't think it was very good in the first round, and here I am holding it again.
Yeah.
But as things go, this feels like an okay opening sequence.
Yeah.
You are up first. You got 3 fighters and 4 activations. So what's your thought here?
So my initial thought is just I have time to sit back, but I also don't want to get chipped too much because I've already seen that you're pushed Morgok away, which does limit my options for charging. And I want to be able to get at Bahanar. That's sort of the experiment in this game was like, if I'm really aggressive against Bahanar, can I kind of blow the game up early? So the start is to just have Ardskull go in and just take a risky attack to just try and take out Bahanar.
Yeah.
There's not much risk of him dying right away. You'd have to hit him quite a few times, and if he gets lucky, that puts things in a really good spot for me.
Yeah, I think at first, as you were making this, I'm like, this sounds great. 2 Fury against 2 Shields is awesome. But as I thought about it more after the game, I was like, that's actually a pretty strong play because there's like the upside is huge, the downside is relatively low.
Yeah, and I guess another sort of small factor here, although it's not likely that Ardskull would get to stay next to you, but if he does, then when Morgok comes in, he'd have support, and Morgok's already a little more accurate anyway.
Yeah.
But ends up whiffing.
Yeah.
And I believe you also whiff your rolls.
No successes on either side. So
yeah.
That means that you get a walk counter. So that's helpful.
Yeah. Getting those walk counters early is also helpful. Getting inspired is a big deal. But power step goes to you here.
Yeah. What I'm seeing, I get kind of big end zone eyes here as like, okay, hold on. I've got a glory. I've got a damage upgrade. I have a gambit that can inspire Bahanar. If I put everything together, then I can have, swing with Bahanar, land 4 damage on Ardskull, and then finish him off with Channel the Wind. Now, the problem with this play is that it uses up 3 of my power cards just to take 1 guy off. But I mean, that seems pretty good, but it also assumes that there's nothing else can go wrong. Like, it means I'm assuming that you don't have a heal in hand. It means that I have to land the blow. But not terrible. But what I do is I use Channel the Zenith on Bahanar to inspire him. And I think this is a mistake not to play it on him, but that I played it on him and I burned his Ether Quartz. I said, I want to inspire him and I want to inspire him permanently. And it just felt bad to say, like, well, what if I play this on him and he would have inspired and he automatically uninspires at the end of the round? I really should have only cared about extra damage for the round. And instead I burned the Ether Quartz, which crucially peels a defensive buff on him. And by that, I mean his Ether Quartz, which is usually nice to retain for a reroll. So I do that. You pass. I put Glory Seeker on Bahanar. Bahanar is doing 4 damage now, but he totally whiffs the attack.
He does, and I breathe a large sigh of relief because when I see the Glory Seeker come on, it's like, oh no, here we go again.
Yeah,
4 damage Bahanar already coming in hot, but
yeah.
uh, lucked out a little bit there.
So a whiff here leaves me with an inspired Bahanar next to Art Skull, and then also 3 away from Morgok. I've got Heated Instinct in hand, and I'm like, well, I could use this. And so I make the decision here, since you have passed. I'm like, well, what I'm going to do, if Morgok doesn't have a push and I push 1 away, then Morgok is not able to make a charge here. He doesn't have any walk counters, so he can't use his ability to push closer. So I make the gamble that you don't have any push in hand, and step 1 further back.
You do, and I recognize that that is a very strong move, and that leaving Bahanar for an entire round is probably not acceptable. So in response, I commanding stride forward only 1 hex just so that I can be within charge range again with Morgok.
Yeah, and here I'm looking at Sinella, and I'm like, oh no, he's got a line on Sinella. Sinella's got decent defense here, but I'm not realizing that you're still all in on Bahanar. So
Yeah.
you can come in on Bahanar. You'll have support, so will I.
Yes, and sort of the reason that I'm willing to even attempt this is that I figure that you don't want to. So you've still got 2 more activations at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and I assume you're not going to want to charge away with Bahanar when my fighters have already charged, and I
Mm-hmm.
know that I have Brutal Reprisal in hand, so I
Yeah.
feel like I probably have another attack on Bahanar at some point here.
Yeah, and this is actually a token error on my part. I only have 2 because you made me go first. So I've taken
Yeah.
2 swings. I missed with Sinella and missed with Bahanar so far.
Yeah. And so when it comes back to me, I do charge with Morgok to try and get Bahanar. And I get 1 success. You crit and success out of it.
Yeah.
So
Which, taking note, would have inspired me here if I hadn't already burned Zenith.
would have.
Um, but I can't be driven back. Not that you would anyway.
No.
Goes on to my power step.
And I do get the 1 Wa counter,
Yeah.
which will be important. And for doing that, because of how you pushed, it allowed me to charge in, like you said, where you'd have supports. And for doing that, oh, you know what? I actually did this wrong. So that's actually a mistake. That was something what I should have recognized. So Reckless Swing says that you will score this after you make a ranged 1 attack action if the target fighter has more supporting fighters than you do.
Mm-hmm.
In this attack, we have equal numbers of supporting fighters. I should
Fair.
not have scored it, but I
Yeah.
did because I did not recognize that I was in that situation.
And to be fair, neither did I. So I mean, this is also part of why you play these games, to like learn your fighters, learn your deck, but also sometimes it's just learning cards. Like sometimes it's just remembering, hey, keep this in mind,
Yeah.
So
And then there's like some of this is just like you're kind of getting ahead of yourself, right? You're
Yep.
thinking like, oh, I know that I need to make this charge into 2 enemy fighters and then I can score this. It's like, whoa, slow down.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. You get excited and then
Sure.
make mistakes.
Tell me now, what do you draw into?
So I draw into clean kills, which does not feel great here.
Mm.
Clean kills requires that I have 6 wounds of enemy fighters out of action and no enemy fighters having wound counters.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, at this point, I have to just hope that I can get to a point where I can score that in round 2, because I know at this point with 2 charges, I am not getting it this turn.
Yeah. It's over to me. I'm still hanging on to Channel the Zenith because Bahanar is still doing 4 damage. And so I'm still got, end zone eyes. I'm like, I still have a chance, to get one of these guys. And I get greedy here where I'm like, if I can swing and kill Morgok, like do 4 damage to 1, Channel the Zenith with, one of my guys who still has an Ether Quartz, I could hit a damage onto each Ard Skull and Morgok, and then swing again with Bahanar on my final activation. I could end up with 2 dead, 2 dead crushes here if everything goes just right. So I make the mistake. I forget some of my pregame plan, which is that I don't want to swing from adjacent to Morgok. Um, or if I do have to swing adjacent to a Krushed, whether it's Morgok or not, I want to swing on not Morgok because he's the more accurate of the two. Here, because I all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I got a chance to kill Morgok. My pregame planning. There's also some support things here where I've got one extra support on the attack. You'll have one on defense.
Mm-hmm.
I swing. And here's in retrospect there's a couple things I could have done. I could have charged Miari onto a cover hex and thrown a blast in, maybe inspire Miari, maybe get a little bit of damage and set something else up, or swing a staff or something like that. I have options, or I can charge Bahanar backwards, get Bahanar out of the adjacent situation. So there's a couple options, and I don't take them. I take the one that is not with my planning. I get one success, which is a support courtesy of Sinella. Morgok does not roll a defense, and so I do get to lay what's going to be 4 damage on Morgok. Except you are not sure, right? You're deciding whether or not you want to play Berserk Fortitude.
Yeah. So I was thinking. So no matter what happens, Morgok ends up with some amount of wounds left over.
Yeah.
If I take Berserk Fortitude, he only has 1 walk counter, so it just peels 1 damage off.
Mm-hmm.
The thinking is that you probably have some way to, ping for 1 damage, either with Mayari's ranged attacks or with some sort of a ploy or something. So it's like, okay, let's just do it. Have 2 wounds left, make you have to hit me with a 2 damage attack or more to finish him off. Then do Brutal Reprisal and get that extra attack to see if we can land the killing blow.
So this, man, you went back and forth a little bit on this because you were like, well, like, no, I'll hang on to it. Actually,
yeah,
I guess it does make a difference. And here I'm looking at channel the wind. I'm like, oh my god, it makes such a big difference. Like,
yeah. So definitely a good choice on my part to make sure to not be at 1 wound left.
Yep. But yeah, so not only do you protect yourself, but you also have the brutal reprisal. We spent a little time making sure these didn't occupy the same. You get 2 successes. So now I need 2 single support shields or crits on defense. And crucially, as we talked about earlier, I've burned an Ether Quartz counter, which is, as in hindsight, is a huge mistake because I roll a dodge and a shield. If I have an Ether Quartz counter here, I have a 2/3 chance of getting out of this thing alive.
You sure do.
But I don't. Bahanar goes down. You get primacy. No, you don't, because this is a reaction after.
It sure is.
Yeah.
But the kill feels really big here.
Yeah.
And having played all 3 of those gambits, after the activation, I do score Auric Cunnin. Mm-hmm. And I draw into Contest of Equals, which is a great thing to draw into. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty good because now I've got Bahanar off the table, and I know that I can kind of weather the storm a little bit from here.
Yeah, not just Bahanar, but Bahanar plus one of my damage upgrades.
True.
Me, I am stuck with either Miari, who can't do a lot, or Aelin, who can come in and try basically that same 2 smash with a support against 1 shield with a support and try and finish off Morgok.
And I guess before we get to that, this kill happened as a reaction. I did have a turn in between, but I just drew a power card.
Oh, that's true.
And I drew Berserker Rage. So at this point, I know I can spend some of that glory coming up probably in the next turn to try and put the pedal down.
Yeah. So you're feeling good. I'm feeling kind of rough. I'm on 1 glory, and that's spent on an upgrade for a dead guy. But I'm like, well, if I can get in there and kill Ardscold or not Ardscold, Morgok, maybe I've still got something to work with. Which I do with a double crit.
You sure do. Take him right out.
Big roll. It kind of gets me, feels like I'm back in because I get the kill. I get primacy because I took out, and then I also inspire Aelin. So Aelin's all of a sudden quite accurate with 3 smash and cleave. Still only doing 2 damage. But got some options here.
Yep. To finish things off for me, Thug is too far away to make a charge. So we're just playing for round 2 at this point. Thug just moves forward into a position to be able to make charges on somebody.
Mhm.
There's not much else to do here. I could have drawn another power card, but then it's probably another turn of Thug not doing anything. So
Yeah.
it's better to get him in
Yeah.
for a future charge.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us to an end here.
Yep.
So a couple things for me. What are your thoughts on this round? Well, actually, let's score it out, I guess. So
Yeah. So you scored first.
yeah, I score. I just have the kill and the one surge that I scored during the round. I don't score anything else, and I decide that I don't have any upgrades out, so I'm going to throw away Prize Beyond Measure. I throw away Path to Victory, which, man, in retrospect, like I could have played this round so much better if I charged Miari on to set this up. If I'd been smarter with, I just wasn't playing towards that at all. And so I throw out Prize, I throw out Path to Victory, and I throw out Force of the Avalanche, which all feel tough to score at this point. Also, I spend my last glory that I have unspent on Silent Ring for Aelin, which I think is a mistake because it doesn't give Aelin any extra. It means that I can't buy any upgrades that I happen to draw into. And the card draw, while could be helpful, is totally dependent on me emptying my hand down to 3 cards pretty quickly, and that there's no guarantee on that. I think this is a bad choice. It does mean that I'm going to end this round on 3 glory once I get the primacy as well.
Yeah. So I am sitting at 3 glory, although as we mentioned, that should have probably only been for 2. And then going into scoring, the last power step, I applied the Berserker Rage onto Ard Skull so that I had the 4 damage attack to be able to score Awesome Predator.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing I score in the end phase, so I just get 1 more. So we should have been tied at this point. But,
Sure.
Lessons learned. At this point, I believe I got rid of, or I put Blunt Fort Master on just so I could draw an extra card. I didn't actually expect it to do a whole lot, but you never know. And then we rolled off for round 2.
Yeah. What is the hand you're looking at going into round 2?
Yeah. So hand I'm looking at, I'm still sitting on clean kills and contest of equals.
Mm-hmm.
Drawing into Primal Display, which so score immediately after get a kill if you gain the primacy from, or if you already had the primacy, I guess, as well. It's just you need to take a fighter out of action with an attack action and have the primacy.
Mm-hmm.
Fairly doable, just a kill. And then for the power hand, it's a little bit upgrade heavy, but it's fairly decent ones. So I've still got Primal Lunge, and then I've got Great Strength and Great Fortitude. Mm-hmm. And then for the gambits, I have Live for the Fight, so I can get more accurate. Importantly, Ard Skull at this point is a brawler, so if I can get him inspired from a free attack, he is sitting next to Highland at this point. Then his Scything attack can have +1 dice for all of the attacks.
Yeah.
And then countercharge. So I have some mobility options for repositioning if you make any charges at this point.
Yeah. For me, I have drawn into Silver Lining, Trace the Ley Lines, and Elemental Blessing. This feels okay, although Trace the Ley Lines is dead. But this combined with the power card hand is really rough. I draw Tectonic Force as my only gambit, which is restricted to Bahanar, who's dead. I draw Mountain Stance, which is restricted to Bahanar, who's dead. The only thing that's working for me is that I do have 4 upgrades in hand, and so Silver Lining is going to score on the first activation no matter what, which will get me 1 to get something else out. So my playable cards are Silent Helm, which feels pretty handy on Aelin, who still has an Aether Quartz and is on 2 block now that she's inspired. We got Champion's Fortitude for a reroll on defense, and I've got Shadowkeeper to put somebody on guard with a reaction. But I am in kind of an awkward spot where Ard Skull has a damage that I put on him from Channel the Wind, but it's going to take me at least a couple attacks. I don't have any damage buffs here, so I'm in a little awkward spot, and I am at like 60% strength on my Gambit hand or my power hand because of Bahanar's death.
Yep.
I win the roll off.
You sure do.
I go with Aelin on Art Skull. I do a lot of talking about like having cleave and that sort of thing until you point out to me that all I need is ass success.
Yep. I have no defense dice. So
Yeah. So Aelin gets 2 damage through on our Art Skull, drives you back to prevent like a free attack. And then I show all my cards because I've got Silver Lining, score a glory. So I'm up to 4 with 1 unspent, and it's your power step.
it is. At this point, I'm deciding that I'm going to go in for, now that Ard Skull can't get free attacks, I'm just going to go in for a big swing anyway, because I want to use Live for the Fight, get him accurate, and try and get a kill.
Yeah.
I actually planned this turn with a bit of a mistake in mind. I was thinking that I could put out Primal Lunge, get a kill, get the primacy, and then burn it right away. We checked afterwards. That is not possible. The interaction timing is that you would actually gain the primacy after that reaction window.
Yeah.
So small mistake. It didn't actually end up mattering, as you'll see here soon.
Yeah. For me, I'm looking at, we're now 4-4. Aelin has not charged. I'm looking at Art Skull saying this guy's got a charge. He's the threat. Once he's charged, I'm kind of in an okay position, I think, because Thug's only doing 2 unless he upgrades. So like maybe I've got a route forward. Is where I'm at, but I can't figure out, do I want to increase Sinella's defense, who is on a cover hex with dodge, likely with support, but maybe not for sure. I could get Sinella on guard, or I could improve Aelin's defensive capabilities, and I choose to lean into Aelin, get another Silent Relic on her. I put Silent Helm, so Silent Helm and Silent Ring on Aelin.
Yep. Which does make me think that, so at this point I do apply the Primal Lunge as we discussed. At this point I am thinking that now Sinella is the more appropriate target because it's much harder to hit Aelin. Mm-hmm. So I charge into these, giving you the support so that I have access to try and make this extra attack that I can't actually do.
Yeah.
But anyway, I make the attack and I get double crits on Sinella.
Yeah. So Sinella bites it. You get primacy.
Get primacy. Scores me primal display for the kill and primacy. Drawing me to Unafraid, which is pretty solid right now because we're already bunched up pretty well.
Mm-hmm. For me now, I'm standing next to Art Skull, who is in killable range with Aelin. So I'm down 4-6, but I feel like I can get this kill, and then it's Aelin and Miari against Thug. That feels pretty doable.
Yep.
So, oh yeah, we accidentally have you make your attack, discarding primacy. And then you put Great Fortitude out, which takes you back out of kill range. So it feels bad again.
Yeah. So
and I guess you do knock Aelin back with this brutal lunge attack.
So it did have a little bit of a impact there, but yeah. So I mean, a misplay, and every misplay is going to have cascading consequences. So
sure.
Just best to learn from them. They happen. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yep. So we are looking at 6-5. You put out great strength at this point on Thug.
Yeah, I didn't need to yet.
Yeah, it's just a hair early, and it gives me a little bit more information. Like, okay, I actually do have to worry about Thug.
Yep.
There's not a lot I can do about it, so it's actually okay. At this point, you also realize that you would have scored contest to equals off that primacy attack,
which again is a yeah. So cascading mistakes, but yes.
I throw out a Live for the Fight, and I start making some weird decisions here where I'm like, well, Art Skull, it's going to take 2 attacks to get Art Skull anyway. Let me toss Miari over. Um, if I can get one hit through with the staff, then I can do enough damage that Aelin can finish off. I might inspire Miari. I've drawn into unequal contest, so if I get lucky and roll 2 successes, then I can score that. So I'm kind of doing some weird choices, chasing some things, but it's because I figure I've only got one attack left with Aelin, and so I might as well get Miari involved now. Unfortunately, Miari triggers a counter charge, bringing Thug in, which is not great.
Yep.
Rolls 1 success, which is enough to, because you don't have any defense.
Yep.
I put Art Skull 1 away from dead.
Yeah. And so at this point, nothing happens for Power Step, and we go straight into an attack from Thug. He does manage to roll a crit.
That crit is downgraded because you're going after Aelin, and that crit is downgraded into a normal success, which Aelin is able to defend, rolling 2, looking for shields and singles. So that feels good. Driving Aelin back, and Thug is soundless stepping around, doing some positioning changes.
Yeah. Trying to like force weird. So at this point, I'm just trying to think, okay, what is my absolute best chance of protecting Ard Skull? And it's just like making you have to charge into bad spots because Ard Skull has no defense dice.
Yeah. So on paper, 7-4, 2 fighters against 2. I feel really good about knocking Ard Skull down here. And Ard Skull has enough wounds that he's worth 2 on a bounty. So I'm feeling pretty good. Unfortunately, none of the objectives in my hand are likely to score because Aelin should be rolling 4 dice with Silent Rings upgrade. So I'm not going to score contest to equals. I don't have an Elemental Blessing in hand, so I can't score, or Elemental Ploy in hand, so I can't score Elemental Blessing. And Trace the Ley Lines is dead in my hand right now because of the objectives that are out and the number of fighters I have. So I got to decide, like, I'm just going to go for board positioning. Maybe I can make this happen with the kill. I come running in. I do score the kill on Ard Skull, bringing it to a 6-7. So feels pretty good for just a second here. I get Miari with Shadow Keeper on, which is helpful to dodge, on guard, and a cover. Now I'm feeling like I got some really good defense out there. On the flip, I'm fighting Thug, who starts rolling a lot of dice in a hurry. So
yeah, I guess I'm also realizing here that since I scored Contest of Equals, you should have scored Contest of Equals. I don't know how much of a difference that would have made for you.
No, I have unequal contest. I scored
you had
Contest of Equals in the first round. Yeah,
right.
I'm right now. I'm in this bad position of trying to roll all successes, which is good if I've got rerolls in hand, but I don't.
Right. So at this point, I take Thug's additional free attack, which is how I had positioned with Silent Step to sort of guarantee that I'd get that attack. I only roll the 1 success though, so again, no success trying to take out Eilan on that attack.
Yeah. The important thing here is it does get Thug to 2
and he
2
inspires.
Wa counters, which inspires him, which is mostly important for letting him then spend those Wa counters for extra accuracy, which is a big deal.
A very big deal.
You also knock Aelin off a cover and step into it yourself using your Soundless Step, which is a good move.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure what you were holding for trying to score, so I was like, well, I might as well. It doesn't hurt anything.
Strong play because all I've got is Miari on an objective. So if I happen to have Rising, or was it Sinking Tide, Sinking Feeling, or Dominant Position, that maneuver there would have denied it. What you didn't know is that I had Hot Garbage in my hand right now.
I did not know.
I'm up first. I don't score anything. I throw away Trace the Ley Lines, which I'm not super happy with right now. I think that may get swapped out. I hang on to Elemental Blessing because I know I've got one more Elemental Ploy in the deck. I feel like I don't know. I think I've also got Duel of Wits, so I think I may be able to draw to it. And it's a passive. What I do hang on to, which I think is a bad idea since I don't have rerolls out, is Unequal Contest. But I've only got 4 objectives left in the deck. So, but I do draw into Duel of Wits, Perfect Stance, Channel the River, which is the push Elemental Ploy, Hypnotic Aspect, which is a distraction but a spell. and sidestep. So still not finding the rest of the damage upgrades and damage
Yeah.
cards in here, which is problematic for me. And then the one objective that I get to draw is scant resources, which feels doable.
Yep.
So right now I'm saying, okay, elemental blessing is going to go off. I could either get it the 2 spell way, or I could get it by, I have either quartz on both my remaining fighters. I could get it that way. I should be able to get scant with some positioning. But I'm going to need Miari to get lucky to get unequal. But I'm only down 1, feels pretty good. And then you do your end phase.
Yeah, and then I blow the game open here a little bit. I get clean kills, unafraid, and wasteland all at
Yeah.
once. Wasteland, I think, is probably one that does not fare too well in best of 3, but I think more often than not in one of the games it'll score almost guaranteed. So
Mhm.
it feels pretty solid. And once you're down to 1 fighter, unafraid is almost guaranteed. So
Mhm.
so
Well,
it's a 5 glory here for me.
in defense of Wasteland, your objectives are so deep in your own territory that even if I wanted to try to deny it, it'd been hard. I would have had to put an objective in yours with the
Yeah.
intention to go run onto it. So
Yeah.
feels pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's
Um,
doable.
yeah, that I take note of clean kills at this point. Like, okay, I don't remember clean kills being in this deck before. If it was, it didn't come up. If I was to play more games, you do so much damage anyway that I might consider a board that has a lethal step somebody through it early
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
to protect against that. But
Yeah. That's actually an
so
interesting point because well, I hadn't thought about it before. If somebody tries to do that counterplay, that makes Blunt Force Master a lot better for me.
yep,
But it's interesting. So to draw up for the next round, I've got at this point Silver Lining, uh, new card I was trying out, Looming Threat. This is for ending with 2 friendly fighters against 1 enemy fighter.
yeah,
So at this point, completely dead card. And then Bold Deeds, which feels pretty good at this point because I've already
sure,
scored it.
yeah.
Um,
All you got to do is keep Thug alive or Thug in my territory, and you're good to go.
yeah, which is not like super hard to do.
Mhm.
He's at full health right now still, and uh, nicely, I just drew into Healing Potion.
Yeah,
And then I've also got Mirror Move for the extra, uh, you know, for inevitably when you decide to use some sort of push tech against me, I can try and get back in position.
yeah,
Uh, and then I've also got Eager Advance, so just another push, but also get a walk counter, which
hmm,
effectively is like an extra dice because Thug is inspired. Then I've got Outrun Death, so I can just make Thug fast enough that you can't really run away from him. And then lastly, I've got Brute Charge for the upgrades. So 4 Gambit hand while holding Silver Lining, not what you like to see. But at this point, being ahead 12-6, I don't feel too badly about it.
yeah. For me, I've got 3 objectives left in the deck. I can't remember what they all are, but I know that there's Sinking Feeling and Dominant Position. So I know there's 3 glory in there. If I can get Elemental Blessing out, I'm going to get Elemental Blessing because it's just how I'm going to do it. And scant. I'm doing the math a little bit. And I'm like, I have a route as long as I don't bleed too much more. I could make this happen. Um, but one thing I do is I kind of make a little bit of a plan here and then forget to adapt it. So we tie on the roll, and then you win.
Yes. And so, of course, I'm going to start by trying to take out Eilen.
Mm-hmm.
I burn 2 walk counters so that I have 5 dice with Fury, and I roll absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
So feels bad, but at least for making an attack, you get a walk counter. So, a little bit of a rebate there.
yeah, um, yeah. I mean, basically means that every attack you're going to make is at 4 Fury or better.
Yep.
Here now, I'm in the position of I'm far behind, and I need to try and score my objectives to be able to catch up. It's not enough to just kill Thug. I am looking at the possibility. I'm like, okay, well, if I can get 2 spells to go off, I can score Elemental Blessing without burning an Aether Quartz counter. And if I can keep my Aether Quartz counters for defense, that's a pretty big deal because every glory is going to count here.
Yep.
So I don't have a really great reason to do this, but I decide that I'm going to my main thing is I'm going to see if I can get hypnotic aspect off. It only needs a channel to go, a lightning bolt that is. Like I'll pull Thug over to where Miari can swing a staff, which will benefit from supports on Aelin. Maybe I can get unequal contest off of that, and then start chipping damage off Thug, which will get me closer. So I do start getting ready for that, or I consider it. But
I played
and I mean,
Outrun Death first.
yeah. And I think you was like, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't just do this now. And then you did it, and then I dual witzed off it.
Yep,
So
and then I gave myself a reason to not just do stuff.
crucially, this draws me into heightened senses, which is a reroll, which I should have been paying attention to. I don't have any glory to spend to get it out, but I also get a damage upgrade. So now I'm like, okay, I have a lot of upgrades that I really want to get out. How's this going to happen? This is where I do that hypnotic aspect. I get really lucky and roll double channels, so I actually inspire Miari off of this.
Yeah.
And I drag Thug to that get off the cover. Unfortunately, you have mirror move in hand and put Aelin out of where I want to be.
Yep. So no supports for you, and you go in to make a spell attack?
I'm pretty sure I go for, I must have gone for a spell attack. Now that I don't have supports, the staff doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
So I decide like the spell, if I can get another spell to go off, then I'll score Elemental Blessing without having to burn an Aether Quartz counter. But I roll, the magic dice are stuck on channels.
Yeah, everything's channels.
Yeah. So I totally whiffed this attack. The plus side for me is that we are, you're not adjacent to anyone, so I'm thinking you're going to have to charge.
Yeah,
I am wrong,
but
though.
I use the eager advance, which then gets me that extra Wa counter.
Mm.
So I'm back against Ailen. You
here, I decide this is the time I'm going to try and get. I'm going to do it now. I'm going to get my Elemental Blessing out. So I use Channel the River. I push Miari 3. I think this is actually a pretty bad play in retrospect. I just move on to another cover hex. What I could have done here is move Aelin, used it to push Aelin further away so that Thug would only get one more attack.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I was thinking like, well, Aelin, if Aelin can survive this, then Aelin can just wail away on you. And there's nothing. I do this to get a glory, but the glory is not necessarily anything that I need to spend right away. So this is generally a bad play. It does draw me into Pursuit of Excellence, which is an upgrade. If I have 3 upgrades on a single fighter, i.e. Aelin at the end, then I'll get extra glory. So that feels good.
Yeah.
So right now in hand, I think I've got a pretty guaranteed 4. We're at 7-12. I'm like, okay, like all I have to do is find one more, and with killing Thug, that might be it, and I win the tiebreaker. So I feel like I've got a route back. But I'm making some misplays here.
Yeah. So at this point, I go again into just attacking Ailen. I've got 5 dice again. So it's like, all right, here we go. Let's get the job done.
Yeah. I'm defending on 2 shields. I have Champion's Fortitude, Silent Helm, and an Aether Quartz counter.
So I managed to roll 1 Fury this time. So, you know, it's going to happen.
I roll 2 double supports. We talk about the timing on this. I need to look this up about exactly how this works. Because I've got the potential for 2 rerolls. I got 1 guaranteed from Champion's Fortitude. And then I can spend my Aether Quartz counter. And what I'm not sure is whether I get to decide before I see the Champion's Fortitude reroll, whether I have to spend the Aether Quartz counter. I go the more conservative route and say, okay, I'm going to spend the Aether Quartz. Then we'd roll them one at a time to see if it would matter. I reroll the first double into a double, or into a single, and I roll the other double into a single, and your one Fury gets through. I was feeling bad. However, on 10 dice worth of 2 attacks, you rolled a single success.
I did.
To be fair, it was 2 pretty atrocious rolls. Super rough is that Aelin goes down, you get primacy. My best bet at Pursuit of Excellence goes down, and I'm really hurting now.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm feeling like it would be hard for you to come back, but it's always a possibility here because you got some bigger scoring end phase stuff.
Yep. Um, for me, here's where I start to I instead of pausing for a second to reassess. So what I'm looking at is I am down by 6, effectively 7, because I'm unlikely to get primacy back from you. So I'm gonna have to score out almost everything. I've got 1 upgrade on Miari. I've got 1 on Spent Glory. So I need to get another glory out to get Pursuit of Excellence. But if I can, so what? Doing the math, I'm like, if I can get a kill, if I can get Scant, if I can get Pursuit, uh, that will get me to 5 more. That gets me 12 to 14. That means that in order to do anything, I have to score this surge, and that's something that I don't realize at this point. I'm looking at it. I have a glory to spend. I could spend it on heightened senses to get a reroll on Miari's attacks. I'm not recognizing that I absolutely have to score this surge, and so I make an I leave that glory. I leave that glory unspent. Make an attack without the reroll. I get 1 success, which goes through for 2 damage, but crucially doesn't score me that. Does not score me that objective.
Yeah. At this point, I decide to burn my healing potion just
Mhm.
to try and make it that much harder. I only get the 1 heal, but it still means you need to do 4 more damage.
Yeah. We're now 7 to 13 plus your primacy, so I still have like a long shot here, but I'm going to need to land. I'm going to need to score the objective and basically do exactly what I just talked about. I need at least to score this surge. And for some reason, I get fixated on Miari might die, and I put perfect stance on Miari, which is absolutely the wrong play here. It doesn't help me score that surge that I need. So bad play.
What I did not realize in this situation, though, is that because you are on a cover hex, so I upgrade with brutal charge. So when I make this final attack, I'm rolling smash and fury. But what I don't realize is that because you're on guard and you have perfect stance and you're on the support on the cover hex, that every single thing that you could possibly roll on your defense dice are going to be successes. So you can't possibly roll failures, which means I need multiple crits or I need just more successes than you can possibly roll. On 4 dice, that is not good odds. So I'm just like focused in on let's charge my Ari. Let's try and get this kill with 4 dice. I roll 1 success and realize after that means I missed my attack.
Yeah. So not only do I defend it, but I crit defend it, so I get to splash of damage back from Shadowkeeper. Doesn't really matter because it's 3 left to kill you. In this case, that healing potion, healing 1, is potentially a big deal. Unfortunately, I've spent my glory out, and so I've got 2 attacks left, and I'm still fishing for the double success. I whiff, so now we know that you're going to live.
Yep.
So you just cycle. I roll in my last attack. It's a crit versus crit. So I don't get through and I don't score the objective. So what that means is that I'm 1 glory short of being able to get to Pursuit of Excellence. I can delve into Scant. So I score 2, finishing the game on 9, and you finish on 16 or 17.
I pick up 2 for bold deeds, and then I get primacy to put me to 16.
So it feels kind of blowout. Like it's you almost doubled me up there. But I think with smarter play, it was fun to realize that I was in it. If I could have figured out that I needed that reroll, then there's a chance that I score an equal contest, and I can dig. Then I dig into, I'll get Pursuit, and then I'll get. So I would have been another 4. I needed to find the kill to deny you bold deeds was the piece I didn't realize, but it wasn't impossible, which was pretty good given that Bahanar died so early. It felt good to be kind of in it, and to know that it's a loss when you can look back and like, all right, here are some things I could have done better. That feels good. So
yeah, the avenues were still there, and like I didn't even recognize some of that stuff even when we did our post game talk. But looking through it now, it's like, oh man, I was probably feeling too confident about how my positioning was in this game. Like it could have gone much worse for me.
Yeah.
Um, and realizing that, that one misplay probably did have some impact on the game. I think it probably would have dropped me about a one glory. Um, so, I mean, if we make that a recalculation, it's like, okay, so I should have probably ended at 15. And then if you had a few more things go your way, it's like this game was incredibly close despite the box score.
Hmm.
Um, the last hand for me in the objectives feels really bad. Um, I I knew that Looming Threat was completely dead. I knew Silver Lining was completely dead. Um, and then I knew I had Bold Deeds pretty much tied up as long as I didn't die. So it was like, well, let's just cycle for whatever. And knowing that it was probably a surge because I was thinking about what else was left. And I was like, it's probably not anything I can score, but let's just double check. And it was Branching Fate. And yes, it was impossible to score. So round 3 really was a kind of a dud for me. I got 1 kill out of it, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, Looming Threat is probably not a great play. I think that we had talked about there's a couple other primacy options that might be better.
Yeah.
But overall, the deck did what it was supposed to do this time around, and the aggressive play on Bahanar paid off. But there was no
Hmm.
guarantee that was going to happen, and I realized through redoing this game that I probably should have waited to charge Bahanar again. I could have drawn that power card earlier. I don't know that it
Hmm.
would have mattered, but like, there's no reason to,
Go quite as early and give you as
yeah,
many swings. Yeah.
it gives you more opportunities to kill Morgok, and it's just not really a good reason to try and do that. So,
Right.
some good lessons learned there. Are there any cards that you were thinking about that I know you've mentioned a couple as we were going along that you are now thinking some lessons learned that you want to potentially make changes?
Well, I'm pretty unimpressed with Trace the Ley Lines. It felt like an easier score than it ended up being.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, and then I've got Sidestep in right now, which is just universally helpful. I have to think about whether I want to swap that out for Cover of Darkness, which is a push 2 to get somewhere, but it
Yeah.
has to be onto cover. So um, those are the two I'm looking at most strongly right now.
Yeah, I think those are both good. I mean, I can definitely see Cover of Darkness working well for you here, knowing
Mhm,
that you're playing scant resources in dominant position.
mhm,
Um, yeah, I think more often than not you'll probably have landing spots,
mhm.
and with multiple fighters with long range, it feels like a good inclusion. They'll probably be more useful than Sidestep most of the time.
Yeah. So the question will be what to put in instead of Trace the Ley Lines. There's
Yeah,
Purifying Light, which is Miari holding an objective. That feels pretty easy, with the exception being that if Miari's dead, it's also dead. But um,
yeah.
so
End phases are so hard to come by right now.
it can be, sure. So but yeah, I'm feeling pretty happy with it. This is actually the first game I've lost with these guys in practice. I've had some that were a dice roll away from being lost, so it doesn't feel as dominant as that makes it sound.
Yeah.
But it's feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty happy with it, and I feel like this is a challenging matchup, and you're getting to know these guys pretty well and this matchup pretty well. So
Yeah.
um,
I
yeah.
I'm also feeling pretty good about these guys where they've sort of ended up. Like I said, trying to still work out a few things. Looming Threat probably doesn't stay.
Mm.
Um, a little bit on the fence still about keeping Blunt Force Master, but I do feel like it's gonna come up eventually. Like there'll probably be a match with like Hrothgorn or something where it's like, hey, I'll just stagger him, and then
Yeah.
that reroll could come up pretty big.
Sure.
um, or I suppose taking guard counters off. It hasn't
Yeah.
ever timed out right for that, but there's been situations where it could come up.
I mean, the dream with Hrothgorn is that Blunt Force Master lets you lob him into his own trap.
Oh man, that would be so great to finish
Yeah.
a game where you kill Hrothgorn with his own trap and be like, oh well, there you go. So I think it's still good, and like I don't know what else would be better at this point. I have thought that I maybe have too many plus damage upgrades, but sort of the worst match I think for these guys is either high defense or high wounds opponents, because it's hard to get kills, and so like the mirror match you really need the damage for. So it's like, well, let's probably keep it because you don't want to be caught out. But that's about it. Any other parting thoughts for folks? Any other things you're considering?
No, and we got into specifics on decks, but I hope the conversation about how we're thinking about our decisions in game and how we're thinking about our decks helps folks, or is interesting. Lets you think about how you approach your own games or your own deck building as well. If you're going to be one of our opponents, then just pretend you didn't hear any of this.
Yeah.
Or we're definitely changing these drastically. Like I'm taking Sepulchral Guard.
Right? Yeah, be that sole Sepulchral Guard player.
Yeah.
If you're furiously taking notes, well, hope we don't face you. But if you do, more power to you. All right. Well, I think that just about does it for us today. If you liked the episode, if you didn't like the episode, just in general, if you've got feedback for us, you can always get back to us at WTHcast on Twitter or whatthehexcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to check out any of the other content that we have in our podcast group, you can head on over to themortalrealms.com. We've got all sorts of different lore content from Age of Sigmar in general, or if you'd like to check out any of the other smaller games from the Age of Sigmar sort of universe, we've got stuff for all of that as well. We are definitely going to be recording again here fairly soon. Just the way with Adepticon landing, we're going to have something ready to go. But I don't think we have nailed down exactly what yet.
TBD. There's a Hail Mary where we might try to record something at the event and release you some awful sounding audio.
We'll do it live
from the hotel room. So yeah, we're going to be in heated discussions about how to go about this. So.
Yeah, should be good.
Yeah.
All right, recommended listening for folks.
Yeah, this is a tip of the hat to the Aggro Warband winning this matchup. Is Point and Kill by Little Sims,
right.
off of Sometimes I Might Be Introvert. That is an amazing album that everyone should check out, and that's a really excellent song from that.
Awesome, sounds good. Well, maybe I'll check that one. I haven't heard of Little Sims.
So good.
There we go. Something for me to do tonight. For What the Hex, I've been Phil.
I've been Davey.
All right. Yeah, almost under, like, it's what, 2 weeks tomorrow? I know, right?
Cool.